Hello guys, welcome to another episode of Venturely. In today's episode, I have two very special guests, Lewis and Esmaeel. Lewis is a up-and-coming Moviefone FC football player, and he's a very talented football player. And Esmaeel is a up-and-coming football coach, and he's currently coaching a youth football team. Speaking of all these players, right? Who do you guys think is the best football player of all time?
Oh, that's a hard question.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Messi. My
Messi?
favorite player,
Yeah.
as I said, is Neymar.
Yeah.
Because I think of what he's brought to the sport is more than what Neymar and what Messi and Ronaldo have ever brought.
Yeah.
And I know that's a pretty crazy statement regarding how impactful their careers have been on football. But in terms of the play style, I think nowadays we see a more robotic and like mechanical play style within the top 5 leagues, especially the Premier League. If we look at, for example, the wingers like Foden, Grealish, just like really unstylish play style of football. I think Neymar has kind of like brought this new generation to kind of admire how he plays. For example, Lamine Yamal, he said his favorite player growing up was Neymar and always has been. And I think, yeah, just through looking at what Yamal has brought to the game at such a young age, I think it just shows how keeping that play style within football is so important. But yeah.
So in terms of football, like the skills required for football, right? Do you think physicality is more important, or is football IQ more important?
That's a good question. Yeah,
Football IQ, physicality.
I think it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking like a young age, like U17, U21, I think at that point in time, it's obviously going to be physicality.
Oh,
If you're bigger, stronger, faster than these
Yes.
other players, even though they might be more skillful than you can kind of get through them. But if you get into the bigger leagues, for example, as Lou was saying, the top 5, like with Lamine Yamal,
yeah.
his football IQ is off the charts. Like he's scanning the pitch, even when he's on the sub bench. It's crazy. And that just shows how his IQ's let him play at this level. And even though for physicality obviously helps when you're a football player, for example, if you look at Ronaldo compared to Messi, he's much more physical, faster than Messi. Messi can keep up with him because of his football IQ, like the way he can see opportunities that most players don't see. It lets him kind of overcome his not like disability per se, but his problem of being shorter. Because as you see with Ronaldo, he can kind of score goals that Messi wouldn't, for example, with headers and all that. But Messi using his IQ, he doesn't have to go for headers. He can just go through the center, pass it off his wingers, and score from there, which I think in itself kind of shows that football IQ is a really important part of the sport with any sport. As if you're looking at F1, for example, you could have the best car with the fastest engine. However, if your driver doesn't know how to turn, doesn't know what the track limits are, they would never be able to get that turn in properly.
Yeah.
They'll never be able to take advantage of that engine. So
Yeah.
if you don't have a football IQ,
Yeah.
you won't be able to take advantage of your physicality.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think adding on to what Ishmael said, from a young age, I think physicality is a lot more important and significant when you talk about who's better as a player. Because when you're young and from the ages of like 6 to 12, I'd say, I think everyone roughly has the same amount of time of training. Like they've only been introduced to the sport. So the only edge you can gain over another person when you're young is kind of like how strong you are, how big you are, or maybe how fast you are. Other than that, like the technicality of the sport and like the skills and everything are roughly the same, regardless of like your background or how much you've trained, because you're only at such a young age to where you're not as familiar with the ball and your own play style as you'd be when you do get to the level where you want to be professional. So yeah, I think when you do get to the point where you join academies or start to grow to the ages of 16, 17, football IQ and how technical you are is a lot more important, because physicality is only going to get you so far.
Like moving on with Lewis's thing, I fully agree that I'd say like if through those ages till like I'd say up till like 18, pretty much, if you could be really good with football IQ,
Yeah.
but you still have to rely on your other teammates, and if they don't have as much football IQ as you, it's purely on how far you can take the ball yourself. Because if you have the physicality of someone who's faster, who's more skillful, you can easily run through the midfield and try past your attackers. But if you're going to give your attacker a long ball, like try kick it over the halfway line, if he doesn't have the skills to or the IQ to be able to see that pass coming, he'll never be able to get it. So it'll look like you're passing to no one, even though in your mind, because you have probably a higher football IQ, you're doing something right. If you can't communicate that with your teammates, it's kind of useless.
Oh, so like at a lower level, you have to like kind of, because not everyone's like connected, right? And
Yeah.
like the level of play is a bit lower, so you have to like, it's up to you to like take accountability and.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Do you guys think those players have like a pregame ritual?
I think everyone kind of has their own pregame ritual, but I don't think there's like a normalized one. Like, for example, I think me and Lewis have distinct pregame rituals.
Oh,
Yeah, I always like to get a feel of the field, especially if it's an away game. Like in Germany, whenever we'd go away for a football game, if you don't kind of set like your pace on the field before the game and kind of visualize the things that you're going to do in your certain specific position, I think it's quite hard to kind of like um get used to the game if the first time you're on the field is when the match starts. I think it's extremely hard to do that. And if you're not like visualizing, as I said, these scenarios in your head before the game, then yeah, it will be very hard for you to get used to the game if you are a starter. So yeah, that's always what I like to do before a game.
It's kind of like tennis, where different fields can have different textures. For
yeah.
example, like Real Madrid and PSG now, they use artificial turf, which is a much different game to playing on like grass. Because grass, you have to wear longer studs. You have to be more. You can't be as much agile because you have obviously the problem of slipping. But I think that's a valid pregame ritual. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I never knew about the different type of pitches and how different pitches could affect your performance so much.
Yeah. Yeah, no, especially when you're playing away. I mean, even considering like the fan base there, like being at a home game for a team is such an advantage. And if you don't familiarize yourself with the setting there and the crowd and the stadium, I think it's really hard to get settled into a game and really perform to your best. If you just walk onto a pitch and just play like automatically, you have to. Every team gets there early, and then you have the option to familiarize yourself with the field. And I think that's something every player should do. That's what I do.
You kind of have to adapt to the new surroundings.
Yeah.
You played football at a very high level, right? So are you still like trying to move into the pro scene, or what's happening?
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
So if you guys didn't know, Lewis went to Germany last summer, and I'm smiling because I got to see myself. He had some of the best highlights I've seen, but he says when he went over there, he had kind of a different feeling to playing in Vietnam. So what was that feeling like, Lewis?
Yeah, no, quite humbling to be
Really?
honest with you. Yeah.
Oh,
As a kid, if you asked me what do you want to be when you grow up, I would have always told you a football player. And that was the case until I went to Germany. Not because I didn't like the football there or I didn't I saw the way that these professional players played and I didn't think it was for me. It was more of a fact that the like how fast this game is developing is something that a lot of players aren't able to keep up with. And unfortunately, I think I'm one of those players because in Vietnam, I think obviously the football setting in Vietnam is quite of a high quality. The players here are very good, and there's a lot of international students who come and play. I play for Fox Football, and there's a lot of good players who come internationally and abroad to play here, and it's at quite a high level. But when we're talking about the countries with the top leagues, the Bundesliga, Premier League, League One, Serie A, I went to Germany, and it kind of just gave me a better understanding of the level of players even below my age. So, yeah, we were scouted before last summer of 2024, and players from all over the world came into Germany from Cambodia, South Africa, England, the US, places like Ohio and New York. And basically, we played there for about 2 months roughly. And yeah, I think at first I was quite confident in my abilities. I still am. However, compared to people even 14 when I was 15, I think the play style, the pace of everyone around the world who also were dedicated to becoming professionals in the sport, I think there's just a certain level that not everyone can keep up with. So
do you think like facilities, especially like living and growing up and training in Vietnam, right?
yeah.
Is there a difference to like the amount of training you can access, or does it matter?
Yeah, 100%. I think it matters. I think being English myself, I'm quite aware of like the football setting in England. It's probably the best in the world for youth academies. People are brought up from even the ages of 6. For example, Jack Grealish, I think he was brought up at the age of 6 or 7. Yeah. But yeah, no, it just goes to show because in Vietnam, of course, we do have opportunities. However, it's more like self-promotion. You
Yeah.
put yourself out there to local clubs, and most times you do have to be a Vietnamese resident to, for example, even play for the Ho Chi Minh City teams or just teams in V League, which is the first Vietnam league. And yeah, I think because it's just a lot more cared for in England, the quality of football, and it's the main sport there. However, here it's like less popularized, I guess. And yeah, the amount of money invested into football here compared to other countries is just minuscule, to be honest. And yeah, here it's more common just to play at an amateur level and just accept that you're not going to go to those pro leagues, especially if you're brought up in countries such as Vietnam or countries in Southeast Asia in general. So yeah, I think it's become quite a tough fact to accept. But yeah, I mean, I love growing up here, and football is not everything I revolve my life around. So
Are there any words of advice that you want to give to like a younger version of yourself if they wanted to pursue their career in football or any type of sports in general?
yeah, I think it's unrealistic to say move to a better country like England from a young age, because of course there's factors such as your parents, their jobs, and your school and your friends, of course.
Yeah.
Because you leaving that behind at such a young age is really difficult, and I've seen a lot of players do it. When I moved out to Germany, they told me that they were planning on staying there, which I found quite unbelievable because they were only ages of 13 or 14. And there were even kids at 8 who had been sent away to Germany to play there for around 6 months, which is something I wouldn't even be able to fathom at the age of 6. All I cared about was, of course, football, but leaving your friends and family behind is such a big part of your life. And I think it just shows how like crucial it is to take that big step in football if you do want to become pro. And if you do that too late, then it's unfortunate to say, but you made that move too late and you're unable to keep up to the same level as others. But I think if you do still want to go pro and you're in an area where football is not as popularized as, for example, in Europe or maybe the US, I think it's good just to be realistic with your goals. Keep training hard. That's not something to like put back on your training.
Yeah.
However, I think, for example, a lot of people in Southeast Asia, they still want to go to university in Europe or the US. So I think, yeah, you're still going to have those opportunities where you can excel as a player. But of course, there's always an advantage if you do that at an earlier age. But some people just aren't able to do that.
So moving on, the next question. So would you guys rather be able to live the life of Lewandowski or Lamine Yamal, especially with like
Ooh.
with them
That's
being
a
on the
good
same
That's a good
team?
question. Yeah, Barcelona.
Yeah, but it's just like, you know, Lamine's such a young, talented player, and Lewandowski has such a solid legacy. Who would you guys rather be?
Yeah, I think even though they are on the same team, they've been on the same team for quite a while now. I think they have such opposing lives in terms of age, potential, and legacy. So I think, yeah, that's a great comparison between the two. In my opinion, I think when we talk about Lamine Yamal, he has had a remarkable impact on the sport as a whole. From such a young age, only being 16, having also a crazy impact at 16 years old on major tournaments such as the Champions League, having debatably one of the best performances against Inter Milan with 0 goals or assists, just pure performance. I think it's crazy what he's done for the sport at such a young age. And that being said, of course, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, a lot of expectations. He was still in school, like taking exams last year, and he was still expected to score for Barcelona and lead their team, which is just a crazy responsibility from such a crazy young age. And such a small amount of people would be able to handle that pressure of those expectations on someone from such a young age, especially an athlete with physical performance. So I think, yeah, that being said, I'm one of those players or people that just wouldn't be able to handle the pressure. And I think I'd definitely fumble at such a young age with all those expectations about it. So I definitely have to pick Lewandowski because despite him not like winning individual awards, that many individual awards, such as the Ballon d'Or, which he should have won in 2021.
Yeah.
Definitely should have won that in 2021. He's a very complete player, and he's definitely one of the best strikers to ever play the game, especially the best Polish player we've ever seen, considering upcoming players such as Isak and Gokares.
Matikash.
Yeah, and Matikash.
I think,
yeah.
I think Lewis is right. Obviously, being Lewandowski would be it would be incredible because you get all the fame and all the money being a footballer without all the controversy, for example, Lamine Yamal. If he says the wrong word on a post, if he says something wrong, the press will be after him because right now he's the latest craze. And I feel like, as Lewis said, that's a massive responsibility because if you can't handle the pressure, and if you do crumble, not only will it be bad for you, it will be bad for your team as well. You never like to see like a Barcelona player being made fun of. So I think me personally, I'd still go with Lamine Yamal because it's always about the opportunity. Like let's say if you do crumble, it'll be like it'll obviously be pretty bad. But if you don't crumble, that's what you have to look at.
Yeah.
So I feel like Lamine Yamal, I think talking about young players is always kind of dangerous because, for example, Ansu Fati was thought to be the next Barcelona winger after Messi, but he got injured. So I think it all depends on hype. If you can handle the hype, like when I think Ronaldo was young at Man United, he had an insane hype around him. Every game used to play. People expected him to score.
Yeah.
And the reason he's one of the best today is because he could live up to that hype. I feel like Lamine Yamal right now is at a time where he's perfectly hyped up. So if people expect him to score, he'll score. But I think it depends. If the hype grows more and more and he can't like play to that level, people might see him as being worse, even though he isn't. So it's kind of like a balance. But I think being Lewandowski would be cool as well, obviously, because you're Robert Lewandowski, the greatest Polish player ever, while being Lamine Yamal, to be the greatest Spanish player ever, you have to beat legends such as Iker Casillas in goal, Xavi, Iniesta, and I feel like Fernando Torres even.
Yeah.
I think that's it's a crazy responsibility on you as a Spanish player to be able to kind of honor the legacy of everyone who's played before you. But I think I'd still go with Lamine Yamal. I think it'd be fun to have the potential, and as you see, Lamine Yamal's pretty loved by the Barcelona fans. I think that interaction would be fun as well because he's only played at Barcelona since he's been young. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, he has a photo with Lionel Messi when Messi was younger.
Oh yeah, like
used to help out.
Getting the blessed or something. Yeah.
He has a photo of him getting a bath when he was a baby by Lionel Messi, which I think only cements his legacy as a Barcelona born and bred player.
Yeah.
I think when we talk about young players, especially like, for example, Lamine Yamal or Ronaldo in 2008 when he was only still a teenager, I think it's important to consider that these players, they have to like maintain responsibility for every single aspect of their life, whether it be their career, which is their main like priority, their love life. For example, with Lamine Yamal, his love life with Alex Padilla and being cheated on was exposed, and basically everyone in the whole world knows about his love life, which is very personal. Things such as brand deals, his image, him maintaining this cool image of being a teenager with a bleached hair and a cool play style for younger players to look up to. Just all those things at once, and blowing up to the football scene in such a small amount of time, especially with him only really blowing up in the Euros. I think it's an incredible amount of pressure for an individual, especially a 17-year-old, to handle. And you can rarely ever find people like that who can not only like maintain and be calm under this pressure and still perform the way he still performs, but to have this sort of arrogance and ego behind him, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
And talking about Lamine Yamal, you guys know that football clip where Cristiano Ronaldo was kind of talking about who was it, like some sort of interviewer about his son, right?
Yeah.
And in that clip, he talks about hunger, and like he believes that his son will be a better player than him, but I think from what I've seen, he's a bit worried about whether or not his son will have the hunger for success, right? Because he's already very successful, so he's unsure that his son will he also have that desire for success. So do you guys think it's more common for a wealthy or like a less wealthy player to become successful? Because like the facilities and all, but again, the hunger and all. Yeah.
I think that's a good question. I think you can kind of generalize that to all of sports. In football, it's
Yeah.
obvious, like Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi, they both grew up poor, so they had that hunger in them.
Yeah.
They played like it was the last game because they knew, like for example, at a very young age, if they didn't play too well, they could have easily been dropped. But I think that hunger helped them become the players they are today. But then if you look at like players who grew up not like rich, but more affluent, for say, you have Gerard Piqué, you have Andrea Pirlo, who are still in their own right world-class players.
Yeah.
But I think it depends on the sport. For example, in F1,
Yeah.
where growing up rich is kind of a necessity, you can look at it from 2 points of view. Like Lewis Hamilton, he didn't grow up necessarily as rich as the other F1 drivers, and I think people consider him the best of all time, the
Yeah.
best all time, 7 world championships. But then I think in F1 it's really dependent on your skill and your hunger, because Lance Stroll, he grew up really rich. His dad owns the F1 team he's on, so you can get away with being not worse, but not as good as his teammates. So I think
Yeah.
it depends, because if you have the hunger in you, you'll play like you mean it. You'll play like you have to.
Yeah.
But if you're more affluent, if you know you have a fallback net, you might not go as far, because if you're let's say, like if you didn't grow up as rich and you notice you lost opportunity, if you mess up, it's over. It's not like you'll be given another shot. But if you're rich, you have connections, you'll be able to kind of bounce back from that to a degree. So you might not try as hard as someone who doesn't have the opportunity to bounce back.
For you guys, how do you guys like try to put in everything, while also managing sports with school life?
Yeah, I think that's a great topic to discuss, especially when an athlete at a young age is trying to balance both school and sports. Because as we said earlier, you should never put all your eggs in one basket. If you only pursue sports, for example, and you want to become an athlete, you have nothing to fall back on. Like we talked about with Ronaldo, he had nothing to fall back on, so he had to do the work that he put in. But for example, with his son basically opposing completely his entire upbringing, having something to fall back on, having hundreds of millions of euros in his bank account, so if he fails, he can pursue something else, it wouldn't be an issue. But yeah, going back to my point, I think keeping a balance is essential, especially as a young athlete, because I've known friends that prioritize sports over school, especially coming up in Vietnam, and that's such a big risk that people, in my opinion, shouldn't be taking, especially at a young age, if they don't know for sure that they're going to make it in sports. Because once you do take that risk, it's not always going to go well, and if it doesn't, with no like reputable school results or universities or like aspirations in anything other than football or sports in general, it's just setting yourself up for failure basically. So yeah, but as a student, I don't think it's incredibly hard, because I don't currently play at a very high level. I play around twice a week, if not 3 times when I play for the school team. So yeah, balancing that with IB isn't too hard at the moment, but I think coming back into term 1 in year 13 IB would be especially difficult, so I might have to lay back on the sports for that time being. But yeah.
And if you guys don't know what the IB is, the IBDP, the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program, it's a 2-year program which consists of choosing 6 subjects, and out of those subjects you can choose 3 at higher level and 3 at standard level, and that's what makes it so much harder than, for example, A levels or in America AP, because the higher level subjects require much more dedication. For example, me and Lewis both take psychology HL, and as we know, to be able to actually succeed in this topic, you have to have a genuine interest in it. And trying to balance that with sports at the same time is it's obviously possible, because it's been done before, but it's not as, for like if you're doing A levels, I think you have a bit more leniency, because you don't have as much coursework, so you're able to pursue your goals like in sports. But in IB, which is a program that requires CAS, it requires you doing IAs, coursework, all this, I think you have to be wise with how you split up your time, because obviously you wouldn't want to go fully into sports and into school, leaving out friends, family, and all that. So I think you have to kind of look at your situation, because everyone's situation is different. You have to look at how you're doing and if you're correctly balancing your time.
Yeah, I think touching on that subject, I think I'd like to discuss how a lot of like athletes with a great amount of potential lose passion for their sports because of the amount of workload that they have. Like, For example, PE teachers, when they try to encourage people to try out for a sport, they'll say, oh, you can put this on your uni application, they'll like it. But I think we all know as students that in reality, unless you're going to major in, for example, sports management, or you're going to apply for mainly being in a sports team, then these universities don't really care about what CCAs you did that, like, regards to sports. For example, if I'm applying for business management and finance, I'm not going to put that I was the captain for the U15 Fabricia sports team, right? Because despite how impressive that might have been in the moment for me and how much work I personally put in to obtain that captaincy role for that team, that ultimately is going to mean nothing for me in the future. So I think in terms of priority, I've seen so many athletes older than me basically throw away their passion for football, all because they knew themselves that it wouldn't get them anywhere and it wouldn't benefit them in the future, so they just threw it away. So I think in terms of uni applications, I think it should be a bit more balanced, and they should encourage more of a balanced CV within students, and not only prioritize academic CCAs or, for example, competitions, but ensure that they're also maintaining a healthy and competitive life outside of academics. So
Yeah, I think this is a good spot to conclude this episode of Venturely. It was actually great having an opportunity to talk to you guys about this different type of sports and your perspective on football and sports in general. Thank you very much for coming on to this episode of Venturely and sharing your perspectives.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Jason. Yeah, thank you for having us.
No problem. Thank you guys for watching this episode of Venturely, and I hope to catch you guys on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.